All right. So it looks like we've hit 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock Eastern time. Sorry, I'm on Central. Always kind of weird to balance out the times, but we'll kind of get started as people kind of trickle in. But I just wanted to thank you all for coming today to the 2026 Publishers Forum. Before I begin, I just want to give a couple of different thank yous. I first want to thank all of our panelists today for making the time to come here and to speak on this topic. They've done a lot of good work to prepared their presentations. And so I'm very thankful for each of them for making the time out today to discuss this topic. I also want to just thank the Business Information Sources Committee. There was a lot of work that goes behind the scenes, whether it is managing the Zoom room, hosting the Q&A, helping to promote the event, even creating the questions and topics. I really do appreciate all of the work that has gone in through the many committee members. So thank you all for your work. And then finally, thank you all for your presentation and helping to keep the Brass Publishers Forum keep going. So my name is Ryan Yoakum. I am the chair of the Business Information Sources Committee and would like to welcome you once again to the Publishers Forum. This year, our panelists will be covering about government data and recent changes that have made through the current administration with data sources. We're going to see they were given a couple of questions about the different types of ways that they use government data in some of their products, as well as maybe potential ways of getting around some of these recent changes and how these are going to impact some of their products that they have, basically. So the way that this will go is we're going to start, and each panelist will talk for about 15 minutes. They were given a series of questions and have created a presentation specifically around those questions. There will be at the end of this a about 30-minute Q&A starting about 3 o'clock Eastern, where you can ask questions, but you can also put questions in through the Q&A section throughout the panel. And Heidi, who's with us today, will help facilitate that. So without further ado, I will actually introduce our first panelist, and this will be IBISWorld. So I'm going to introduce today Nicole Artica and then Joe Mazer. So Nicole Artica is the Customer Success Manager for both IBISWorld and Procurement IQ. She has been with IBISWorld for 7 years, and for the past 5 years has had a role concentrated on strategic accounts and client advisory for their academic members division. Nicole received her degree from Pennsylvania State University in advertising and public relations. Likewise, Joe Mazer is the key accountants manager with the academics division of IBISWorld and Procurement IQ. Joe is in his 13th year with IBISWorld after spending a couple of years as a Series 7 licensed security broker and time with a major US stock exchange and a financial data organization. He received his degrees from Rutgers University in both economics and Italian studies with a minor concentration in statistics. So take it away, Nicole and Joe.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Just a quick thumbs up. Can you hear me okay? Wonderful. Always like to do a quick tech check here. And I will start sharing my screen. All right, I just want to make sure that's working properly as well. Perfect. So thank you again for what a great introduction. Thank you to all the participants. Looks like we have a fantastic crowd here joining us today. We at IBISWorld, Nicole and myself, we're very excited to be part of this panel. You're going to be getting a lot of great insight, not only from us, but from the other panelists. A lot of fantastic resources here, and we're honored to get that started. And such a great topic. We appreciate all the questions that were presented to us to address here during this 15-minute time frame allowed. Obviously, this is not intended to be a full demonstration of IBISWorld, nor will we be diving deep into any of our capabilities within this time constraint, of course. That's why you have myself, you have Nicole, and our team here are certainly available to continue this conversation in greater detail offline as needed. While we may skim the surface on a couple items, a couple areas, of our database that are relevant, if there's time, of course. A walkthrough was not the key intent, so please don't hesitate to reach out for anything you may need. That's why we wanted to provide our contact information here as well. But we'll certainly be covering all the questions and concerns that were passed along our way as it pertains, and IBIS World's perspective as it pertains to these changes in government data and its impact on business information from the IBIS World lens. So, to lead off, how has your product incorporated government information in the past, and what kind of government information do you use in your product? Nicole, you want to take this first one?
Got it. So our government sources are an instrumental part to our research. The vast majority of our research data is derived from the Census Bureau, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, StatsCan, and other federal agencies. These sources provide information on revenue, establishments, wages, enterprises, international trade, markets, cost structure, and more, and making government data deeply integrated in our research process.
So then, how much of a role do government data sources play into your products or products compared to other data sources used?
Yeah, so government data plays a pivotal role into forming the backbone of our analysis. However, we also rely heavily on industry-specific data sources like trade associations, major company disclosures, and a myriad of credible sources to kind of complement and enrich the findings for creating more comprehensive and well-rounded research product.
All right, great. So, can you go into more about what impacts have you had from the change in government data availability, and how has that influenced the information contained in the products?
Yeah, of course. So there have not been major changes to the government data, in the government data availability that would affect IBIS World. Of course, the most notable one is a disruption that occurred during the federal government's shutdown in like late 2025, when several data sets maintained by the government agencies were temporarily offline or scheduled releases were delayed. But thankfully, we already had a solution in place, which we're going to continue going forward to mitigate risk. And now we're proactively storing key data sets offline to ensure continuity in our research and just any temporary outages that will happen in the future. Awesome. So, questions also to let's continue them on. So, what strategies are you considering should the federal government pull any crucial data relevant to your product?
So, our main strategy here at IBIS World, if obviously preserve and maintain local copies of the most important data that we use. So this ensures that we can continue producing accurate and reliable analysis even during disruptions like the one that was experienced recently as a result of the evolving data updates by the government and NAICS. Actually, all of our industry title names have been reviewed and confirmed or realigned to be updated to fit evolving thing published by the government and by all these various associations perfectly aligned with our systems as well. Like here in the US using NAICS, obviously we also want to provide naming consistencies across collections as we uh, further pursue a global roadmap and expansion. And in fact, on top of all of that, all of our members actually now all also have complimentary access to our industry archives. So not only do we worry of all the data going back in time, but now we're opening that up to our members who now have access to our industry archives. So you yourselves can track industry data trends over various economic cycles and always federal government.
Awesome. And then the big topic, AI, how might AI and AI tools influence or change capture, and collect data in light of the potential of losing certain access to federal data sources?
Sure. So, well, our oh, am I breaking up or is it I, I was getting a little bit of breakup from Nicole. Can you guys hear me okay? I just saw the chat saying that we were starting to break up heavily. Is, am I still coming through clearly?
It's been kind of a little spotty lately. Yeah, kind of on and off from this end, but
Okay. I apologize for that. I am unsure what may be happening. Um, Going forward, Ryan, we can always send you some of our notes as well, um, to share with the audience. This way, this way, we want to make sure that everyone is able to consume and digest and take advantage of the information we're sharing. So, to address this question, while our key data sources remain publicly available for download, AI tools currently play a limited role in our data collection. Our process is human verified, not human, it's human generated, not AI generated. So everything is conducted by our team of in-house analysts and economists. The team conducts all of the research so that we can prioritize sources and maintain structured data archiving processes rather than relying on AI-driven scraping or collection systems. So actually, you can rest assured knowing that our team is involved in every step of the way. And on the other hand, instead of using AI to find information for us, we're using the power of AI to help improve our user experience for you. So you can spend less time searching and spend more time learning and digesting our human verified, human generated content. So just in case I was breaking up a little bit, AI being not playing a significant role in how we gather data, but using the power of AI search to empower our users and help you find what you need within IBIS World.
Awesome. And how have recent events influenced some of the focuses of your product that may have tracking on new types of government informations like tariffs, for example?
So we are always looking to help our readers, our users stay ahead of current events and topics, particularly those with a substantial economic impact. So we now, and we always have had our industry insider, which we constantly update on a very frequent basis. It's essentially a media center full of newsworthy topics, current events, along with the related industry implications. These are delivered as featured articles, quarterly macroeconomic updates, webinars, podcasts, white papers, and more. Um, have included the hyperlink here. I believe we have enough time. I'll do a quick skim through. Essentially, anyone can really click into this, click on whichever economy is important to you all, and this is where you'll find all of those thought leadership and newsworthy topics, along with the related industry implications. Beyond that, I know in the original question presented to us, tariffs were brought up, of course. Um, so tariffs are a great example. Our team actually developed a dedicated tariff tracking tool through our member site that gives users visibility into how tariff changes may impact the industries they're interested in. So we constantly monitoring the evolving tariff landscape, and we've already made more than 14 unique updates to this tool just to stay up to date. Essentially, anytime news comes out about tariffs, we're constantly monitoring the situation, seeing what has changed, updating our tariff exposure tool. with this ever-changing and ongoing situation, we of course anticipate more updates to come. Similarly, we've expanded our coverage of inflation by creating a tracking tool that shows how inflation influences industries, products, and supply chains. And we've even, as of just this fall, expanded and integrated producer price index profiles and that data directly into our platform. So now all of our users, all of our members get access to over 1,500 plus goods and services to track how prices have evolved over time and be able to forecast future costs, whether it's in respect and through a lens of tariffs or other macroeconomic trends and factors affecting each of those products and the costs. And then another thing that we opened up recently, we have risk ratings reports. Oops, sorry about that. Which essentially these are updated every single month. They track, analyze, and quantify how risky it is to operate in an industry over the next 12 to 18-month period. Um, and essentially, we've had this tool actually going back even before I started 13 years ago. It's been a premium or business focused tool. Odds are, students as folks graduate and go to pursue their careers, they'd be using this anyway. Now it's open to our key academic members at no additional cost, or actually all of our academic members. And again, this is going to track on a month-to-month basis, not only tariffs, but any factors affecting the performance of this industry over the next 12 to 18-month period. Not only track the risks facing each of these three components, structural risk, growth risk, and uh, um, sensitivity risk. Structural risk being the characteristics common to all industries, barriers to entry, imports, exports pertaining to tariffs, volatility of the industry, growth risk, looking at the past 2 years revenue growth versus next year's forecast growth, and then sensitivities, looking at factors specific to a given industry. These have the highest impact on the performance of this industry. So again, tariffs are always in people's minds, inflation's in people's minds, the change of costs of the goods and materials. But of course, it's important to monitor other risks facing industries and not only address and quantify to what extent is a fluctuation in this driver going to affect this industry, but how likely is it that each of these drivers will change? How volatile are each of these drivers with the analysis as well? So, in short, we stay proactive in responding to major economic developments and continuously find new ways to use data that is going to help not only businesses, but schools stay informed and make strategic decisions. In fact, not only are we seeing a trend that schools are, of course, using IBIS World to empower their students and help support the economic, the education and research perspective, but they're even using it to make their own business decisions to see what is happening in industries around them. How can we promote and attract students based off of industry and market demands in our area? Again, I know we're confined to a specific time constraint. Going forward, please reach out to either myself or Nicole to dive deeper into various tools, articles, your IBIS World membership in general. We're more than happy to answer any questions you may have. I am not sure if I'm still within the 15 minutes or so given to me. I do know that there is a period available for questions at the end, so I'll turn it over to Ryan to see what would be best to proceed. Either way, thank you again for everyone and your attention here to this portion.
All
Perfect.
right.
You're
Thanks.
just in time. Yes.
Oh, yes, I was gonna say perfect timing. So, so thanks so much, Nicole and Joe. There will be some time for questions at the end, so I think there is something specific to IBIS World coming in, so we can address that at the end during the Q&A section. So now I am going to introduce Statista, and with me I have Megan Drake and Nicholas Quas. Megan Drake is the head of academic government sales at Statista. Megan has been with Statista for 3 years, and she holds both a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Wisconsin, along with a Master's of Library Science from Emporia State University. And Nicholas Quas is the Global Sales Enablement Manager at Statista. He has been with Statista for 7 years and has a Master's of Science in Politics, Economics, and Philosophy from the University of Hamburg. So I'm going to turn it over. Thank you so much. Take it away, Megan and Nicholas.
Thanks, Carolyn. I'm just going to say a couple of brief words, just introducing Nick. I lead our sales team, but Nick is much more able to speak to the data pieces in these questions. So when I got the questions over that were going to be addressed, I tapped Nick in immediately. He is able to connect with a lot of our data analysts in Hamburg. So I will be able to answer some more Statista Americas type questions, but for the most part, it's going to be the Nick show for the next 15 minutes. So go ahead and take it away, Nick.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Megan. So I'm not on mute. Fantastic. I will share my screen. We can all see that? Yes? We're good?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. So I'm just going to dive right into it. Yeah, so really, rather than going through question by question, I thought it was best to give us a bit of an overview as to our broader approach to data and see how data quality is actually built into the methodologies and the processes within our 3 main data types, and also how they kind of work together both from a user's perspective and from a back-end perspective to be able to reinforce quality between each of the 3 pillars. So we have 3 main data types on the platform. The first, which is our bread and butter, what we're most well known for, is our curated set of third-party statistics, not data sets, so not a link through using an API to a full data set, but actually curating the individual statistics and putting in a human written context and human generated visualization for that data to provide context and make it really, really easy for readers to understand. And we've got well over 1 million on the platform now, individual statistics. Secondly, we have Market Insights, which is our proprietary forecasting and modeling. So this is made up of a variety of different sources, as we'll see, but it's all our own modeling, it's all our own work. And that is a nice little, I guess, counterbalance to the third-party data we have, because it does give a way to sort of benchmark different values. So you can maybe check what's happening if you have a government statistic and a statistic that we've modeled, to see what's going on. Finally, we've also got our consumer survey data, which has absolutely no relation to government data because it's our own proprietary survey data. But that's also a fantastic way to get a different perspective on things like, say, demographics, to have another counterbalance, I guess, towards government data. So I'll start with the statistics. Everything's human verified, and so therefore any quality control measures are built into the very methodology of how we create these statistics. So I started at the company as a researcher, actually. I was the researcher for US economics, US politics, and then for global finance. And so I've got a really sort of hands-on knowledge of what our researchers are doing to create each individual statistic. And it really is a human with expertise in the field. As was mentioned, I have a degree in politics and economics, and I used to work in financial services in Australia, hence why I had those portfolios. And so I had my own sources that I would use. I was manually verifying those sources before putting them into a centralized database so that anyone else who accessed those sources knew they were human verified. I was choosing the most relevant statistics from those data sets, and I was writing context about those. So everything was deeply human curated. Every single data point was deeply human curated. That meant that as a part of creating those statistics, we were always finding issues with sources. And so the solution we had to what would happen if we came up with any source-based issues, be that with government data or any other data for that matter, is we would try to find another source and would be verifying the integrity of those sources as we go. So that might mean we were shifting to a non-governmental source if there was any issue with government sources, and we could also flag that for any other statistics that were based on that source. So, the quality controls really were built into the absolute methodology of how we create those statistics. And so to give you an example of something we've found recently, I'm no longer creating statistics, that's me in a former life, but I did have a conversation to the person who took over a lot of our US government statistics. And he gave an example of immigration data as being something we've found at the moment where there is actually a major pause, not just a little pause, but a several-year pause in updating information on, you can see here, the number of unauthorized immigrants removed or returned from the US. Data's only going up to 2022, and that screenshot on the right, I pulled that last week, so that is current as of now. So that data is not being updated. So, the plan is to go and look at other sources. The researcher informed me that there are people trying to find other estimates for that data that we're going to fall back on, because at this point, I think we're not expecting that figure to be updated anytime soon. But generally, the process would be, if there is any sort of delay by that, we can simply shift out to another source that gives data that is just as reliable, that might be non-government. So it really is a case-by-case approach that we're able to adopt because of that very human-centric methodology we have for our statistics. And another benefit of this approach, the highly manual nature of it, is that we can respond extremely quickly to trends, like the tariffs. So what we do every time there is a major trend that we identify, our researchers are tasked with identifying those, and often we'll build out like a hub page. At the very least, we'll build a topic page where we can give a description of it and link out to a whole variety of different data series, reports, everything that our researchers are generating on that topic. But if it's something really important, really major global event, I'm thinking primarily of the COVID-19 pandemic, which I'm sure we all remember on this call. We actually created a giant hub where we were not just doing a single page linking up, but a giant interactive hub which we were updating daily with major statistics. And that was, I don't want to use the word successful in the context of COVID because it was such a horrible period, but it was very successful for the company, that we really became a very trusted source internationally for up-to-date data on that. So it's, again, a really important element of that manual methodology. It does give us this flexibility to shift what we're publishing and how we're publishing it very quickly, which with a more sort of automated process, it can be very, very hard to change those data pipelines and change those templates at short notice to adapt to having such a large interactive data series generated as quickly when there are major events. So speaking of automations, though, of course, we are moving towards automation. There are some data series that are, better to be automated for a quicker update cadence. But that's things with very structured data. So the two things that we're really looking into at the moment and really sort of shifting into a more automated cadence is the our company data and our sort of global data sets for macroeconomic indicators or anything with a very structured data series like that. So most of that information is coming from NGOs, but some of it is coming from the US government. However, we're very fortunate because all of our highest performing statistics, all the ones where we actually provide extra additional context, they remain and will remain human verified. They are being completely done by humans because of that extra human written context within those statistics. And that means that there's always an ongoing quality check, human quality check for the data sources going into any of those automations. Now, naturally, we're checking those data sets when they come in. I'll talk about that with the market insight side of things a little bit further, but you can see here we've got on the right-hand side, that's our scorecard basically for all of our company data. And we really are running a statistical analysis on the source data before anything is uploaded to check if there's any outliers, any major jumps, any missing values, anything like that. And our rule is that if we find those things, we just don't upload the data set. We go back and figure out what's going on before we're going to upload anything. So we're really trying to get the quality at that source side to make sure that there's no issues with the uploads that we are doing. But again, 13.5% of our statistics are automated. The vast majority remains human verified. And those ones that we deem to be the most important are also human verified, even from those data sets where we've automated some other statistics. So moving on. Market insights, so our market forecasting and sizing, proprietary market forecasting and sizing, that's something that uses a variety of sources. We have government statistical offices, so US government data, obviously, but also NGOs, global organizations like the World Bank and IMF and the like, industry associations and private institutions. And we use all of this data to do our own proprietary modeling using a top-down and bottom-up approach, which is updated anywhere from 1 to 6 times a year, depending on the popularity and the importance of that data set. But because of that approach, we do have the ability to change all of those forecasts very quickly in response to any major events like tariffs or wars in Eastern Europe or all those things that are going on at present. But as mentioned, we have an extremely robust set of automated quality checks on that. So similar, exactly the same as I said with our company data, we're checking the source, we're making sure that the statistical patterns within the source data are in line with what we'd expect. Then we're also running checks on our modeling. So we're making sure that once we run the modeling process, there are no major jumps beyond what we'd expect, no missing values, a whole battery of different statistical checks we're doing on that. And every time something's updated, we're also getting the analyst to fill out a questionnaire so we can track exactly what's been done in that update. So in terms of the input side of it, we've got two main quality checks plus very strict documentation. We then also check things once they go into our platform to make sure nothing's gone funky in that upload process, particularly checking for null values or anything like that. So there's an additional layer of data checking there. We also have an ongoing scoring thing to make sure that we're tracking the data as it goes on, and we have a very, very good overview of anything that might need further attention. And finally, we've got the feedback side of it. So we have a structured feedback program. Now, modeling being modeling, there might be some value that isn't matching perfectly to what's in the real world. And if we do get feedback on that, we update things case by case and feed that back into the methodology. So it's very dynamic there. So as you can see, we've got a very robust set of data quality measures within our proprietary forecasting to make sure that everything is as accurate as it can be. But the key point here again is that human verification, because all that work that's going in for our manual statistics, over 1 million of them, that human verification of those sources, that can be fed back through to the sources we're using also for our modeling. So it's a really great human-centric feedback loop that we have in place there. So very quickly, because I'm aware I'm getting to the end of the 15 minutes here, our consumer data, consumer insights. Again, that information is not from government sources. So, it doesn't really fall prey to the issues of around potential problems with inputs coming from sources we don't control. We do have a series of quality checks on that survey data. I'm not going to go through them all here. We have our methodology online if anyone's interested. But it really does provide a great way to give, I guess, an additional way to view a lot of things like demographics or any of those sort of social statistics that we're pulling from both government and NGO sources in other parts of our data pillars. So yeah, that's basically it. Our mission is to empower people worldwide to make fact-based decisions. And we do that through not just providing data, but providing different streams of data so you can view whatever it is you're analyzing from multiple perspectives to form the best opinion and make sure that you have different data sources available to make sure, that you fully understand a topic and aren't just dependent on one particular data source. So I will stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Nicholas and Megan, for your presentation. A reminder to our audience to use the Q&A feature in Zoom if you have any questions for these panelists or our next panelist from Sibley Analytics, who I have the honor of introducing. Juan Vasquez is the Support and Sales Manager for Sibley Analytics team. Juan has worked in software through various roles for over 14 years and previously worked in the nonprofit industry as a planner, authoring community assessments for grant applications. Juan, we're happy to have you today, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Skylar, and thank you to Paras for inviting Sibley Analytics to take part in this wonderful discussion. So at Sibley Analytics, government data is really central to our platform. The public sector in general produces many useful and trusted data sets on people, places, and the economy. But anyone who's worked with this type of data knows that there can be some nuances and challenges. So on the one hand, it's incredibly useful and powerful. But with that, again, some challenges might be things like changing geographies or just the complexity of some of the tooling that's available. So our goal is really to preserve the integrity of those sources while making them easier to discover, access, and provide extra usability and value to that. Now, when I say that it's central to Simply Analytics, what I mean is it largely makes up our standard data package. And for those of you here who have never heard of Simply Analytics, we take data from both public and private sources, and we integrate it into our platform, enabling users to quickly access and interact with different sources to create their own customized reports and mingle data from different vendors, both public and private, in the same report, which is really fascinating because it opens up the world of interesting insights that you can find that literally no one else has. And you'll see what I mean as I proceed throughout the session today. So what government data is in Simply Analytics? Well, some of it's going to be things from the census and the American Community Survey, of course, right? Those are sort of the foundational data sets. That's going to have information on demographics and housing, income, education, commuting, poverty, business counts, and more. We also have information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's going to be kind of information from the consumer expenditure and other resources like the NOAA. So you have some climate data to help give context and, explain risks or exposure to place-based conditions, which is really, really fascinating. So what I want to do now is I want to jump right into the database here to talk a little bit more about what I mean when I say providing value where we can. Okay, so what's the first sort of major point of this is like, well, a lot of users really want current demographics. So that's first sort of value add of Simply Analytics is modeling current estimates and projections of a lot of this demographic data, right? So these government releases, they are super high quality, but they might not always be current, right? So we want to kind of bridge that gap with modeled current year estimates of information. So you can kind of see like, well, you have median income for 2025, which is really nice. Another aspect of this is we really love the American Community Survey, and we actually have that in its entirety in Simply Analytics. But one of the values that we bring is we kind of create a subset of that to make them a little bit more readable in terms of the variable names and the folders themselves. And I just pulled up an example here of like, well, what would a data variable look like from the ACS of like Hispanic population, right? Well, it would be Hispanic or Latino origin by specific origin, and then the table, and then total population, right? And that might be confusing for some users. So kind of a subset of that is like, well, we'll just give you something like this, right? Percentage of Hispanic or Latino, which for a lot of users, kind of prefer that sort of easier to read aspects of it. Now, another way that we're helping to kind of add value to this government data is normalizations to current boundaries. So a lot of you are likely aware that, boundaries change over time, and especially every 10 years, there's these huge changes in boundaries where new block groups are created, new census tracts are merged, and all sorts of interesting and fascinating things that, if you work in data, can bring a little bit of a headache, right? And it's especially because these boundaries change, it makes it kind of hard to track data over time. So what we do is, we have a product where we're normalizing a lot of this older data to current boundaries. So you don't have to jump into historical boundaries. Now you can, we have that functionality as well, but it's really nice. You can see on my screen here, I'm looking at urban population as it was in 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010. You could see that growing trend, but I didn't have to do anything complex here. I just clicked on literally census 1980 and I was ready to go. Now that's the last sort of point that I want to bring up about these sort of value added aspects to Simply Analytics is with some of the data sets, so things like from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the consumer expenditure data, well, that's a national survey, right? And so what we'll do is we'll model that information down to lower geographies. That way, users can have estimates to these lower geographies, so you can analyze local spending patterns in a way that's practical for planning or publishing or decision making. Now, keeping on that theme of government data, in one of the most common requests that I get from users is, I want to combine data variables, right? Like I want to look up, I want to take two data variables, I want to combine them. It's a very frequently asked question. And up until this point, we couldn't do that in Simply Analytics with government data, but that is all changing now. And you're going to see what I mean in a second. So when people ask that, basically what it means is this is where microdata comes into play and it becomes essential. And specifically what are called PUMs, or public use microdata sample, okay? So what even is that? Essentially, this PUMS information is person and household level records that have been de-identified from the census and the American Community Survey. So they're basically sort of like anonymized, literal records of data. Now, this also includes weights, so you can produce statistically valid estimates, which is really cool. And the power of this is flexibility, because you can build out these crosstabs that are not available as pre-published summary tables, which is really, really fascinating, because those of you who work a lot with the census, well, when people ask me for those crosstabs, the census gives you some, right? And a very obvious one that I could think of off the top of my head is like, well, educational attainment by race and ethnicity. Okay, that's a crosstab. But you can't make that. That is kind of things that are provided to you. But that brings me into my announcement here. And I'm going to ask for your forgiveness in advance if something goes wrong, because this is a dev server. So please keep that in mind. This is not live. But we are going to be bringing these PUMS cross-tabulation functionality to Simply Analytics in a very streamlined way. And this is also going to be included in your current subscription. So there is no extra cost for what I'm about to show you here. So this means that now you can get this flexibility of microdata, right, outputs, but without having to start from raw records or complex tooling or long methodology ramp-ups, of which, again, this information is fascinating and, but it is kind of complicated to work with if you're going straight to the source. But again, we've kind of spent a lot of time streamlining this here. So what do we have to know about this? Well, here what I'm showing you is I'm taking this, PUMS data, and I'm looking at it and I'm creating a crosstab for a PUMA. Okay, now a PUMA is essentially a statistical geography that the US Census Bureau publishes with their microdata, right? And this is what they publish because it helps them to protect privacy, okay? So it's basically I guess you could say like the main sort of local geography for microdata is a way to think about it. And you could see here, I've now gone in and I've created a cross-tabulation looking at disability status, okay, in my rows. And my columns, I'm looking at access to not having access to the internet. Right next to this, I have not having access to a computer. And then I just was playing around with some of the other data. But again, all of this is you pick and you create your own cross tabulations with that ACS data. Most of the questions that are in the ACS can actually be then created into this cross tabulation, which is really fascinating. We will calculate this data for you instantly for users, and we'll explain every value in the cells that you can see here, because this is really interesting insights. For example, just looking at some of this information on self-care difficulty, those who said yes, right? We have an index value here of, so the people who said that they do not have access to the internet are 226% more likely to have said yes to having self-care difficulty, right, than the general adult population in that PUMA. So this really opens up the types of insights that you can pull, especially, again, remember, I used to work at nonprofits authoring these community assessments, and this was the type of information that we really needed to help author these, grant applications, right? And say like, hey, well, look, in these places where people are disabled, they really need access to internet or computer, right? So this is a wonderful new product that's going to be available soon in Simply Analytics. Again, this is included in your current subscription. We'll make an announcement, so keep an eye out for that. I'm very excited for this because I'm really curious to see what sorts of insights people can pull once we release this out, especially to, of course, our education institutions who are going to be doing this types of research. So I really appreciate your time, and I'm glad that this held up. We didn't see a bunch of errors show up here. Now, just in general, I wanted to answer some of those questions about like, well, what if something was pulled from our core data, right? If something like that happened, we would likely have to evaluate, other private resources to see if there's any sort of public equivalent. Of course, we'd likely just keep the most recent vintage of that. But yeah, we probably would leverage our network to see if we can partner to find something like that, or even kind of continue on with our model-based continuity and things like that. Now, the last thing I'll mention here is, questions about any recent events that have influenced some of this focus. Really, the only thing that we've seen personally is kind of like an influx of interest in election data, to which we have partnered with Dave Leap to have that data to mingle that into Simply Analytics alongside some of the other data variables, so that you could look up, which types of media people trust, and then their voting preferences over time. So that might be something that I prepared here that I thought was interesting. Okay, so thank you so much again for your time, everyone. I really appreciate it. Government data is really foundational to us, and we see our role as helping people use those sources by making them easier to find, easier to interpret, clearer about some of those nuances. And yeah, we're just excited to keep expanding what customers can do with this public data. So thank you again.
Thank you, Juan. So I will be introducing our next group of speakers here. From Privco, we have two wonderful folks joining us today. First, we'll have Walter Wong. Walter Wong is the Chief Technology Officer at Privco, and he's been with Privco for 12 years. Walter received his degree from City University of Hong Kong. And we also have Joey Lai. Joey Lai is the lead data and research analyst at Privco. He's been with Privco for 9 years, and Joey has a master's in business administration with honors, as well as a master's in computer science from the University of Chicago, and a master's of science in finance engineering from WorldQuant University, and a master's in finance from Georgia State University. Thank you both for being with us here today, and I'll pass it off to you guys.
Thanks, Michael. for the introduction. Let me share my screen first. Okay. Yep. So hello, everyone. I'm Walter Wong, CTO of PIVCO, and joining me today is our lead research analyst, Joey Light. With us, actually, our PIVCO web, Dan is also attending in the forum at the attendee side, and he can be reached at dan@pivco.com if everyone need him. So first of all, PIVCO is a financial intelligence provider focused on the U.S. privately companies and their performance. We provide modeled revenues and valuation estimate and deals funding intelligence and also about the growth signal. Besides about the academic research, we serve different kind of the customer with the use case of the delivery, discovery, due diligence, or the sales targeting. And today we will discuss a few things. How the government data fits into our data architecture and how the changes in our ability could affecting us, and also how we are building about the resilience into our model. With this, I will hand it over to Joey to walk through and how we use government data today, how we prepare it for the potential disruption, and then I will return later to discuss about how AI is reshaping our operation model. Yeah, Joey.
Thanks, Walter. This is Joey. Hi, everyone. I'm the lead data research analyst at PIVCO. So as a leader in PIVCO managing day-to-day data and research operations, I'm going to talk about PIVCO's data framework and how we use government data, the impact of government data recent disruptions, and how we manage it. And first of all, let me start with the structure point. So private market intelligence has never depended on a single data source because we are actually solving a very complex problem. The reason is that unlike most public companies, private companies are not regulatorily required to disclose any financials and also any fundings, any structural changes or M&A deals. They are not required to do so. Therefore, private market intelligence has always required triangulation across fragmented sources. At PIVCO, we operate on the diversified multi-source hybrid architecture. That means we integrate government data, such as federal level data, state level records, and also with alternative performance indicators, industry benchmarks, and our own proprietary modeling. Government data is very important and foundational. For us, it provides legal existence validation. It provides structured filings, high confidence anchors, and also trustful signals to refine and recalibrate our financial models. But it's not a sole engine for our intelligence. It represents one layer in the broader system. Private markets are structurally opaque. Disclosures are incomplete. It's delayed. It's often inconsistent. So our system is intentionally built for that environment. Next, I'm going to talk about how PIVCO uses government data specifically. Let me be very clear. The government data is extremely valuable. Since it is structured, it is authoritative, it is legally grounded. We extract, for example, structured signals from SEC filings, from Federal Reserve and FDIC disclosures, state registrations, bankruptcy courts, and other oversight bodies. But what role does data actually play in private market intelligence for the government data? For us, the government data represents roughly about 20% of our structured signals, and that 20% primarily serves as a validation anchor. It tells us that what is real and true. For example, we use it to verify legal existence of a company. We use it to confirm IPOs or M&A of a company. We use it to flag bankruptcy or restructuring events and provide structured industry classification. We also use it to provide high confidence validation anchors and provide signals for financial modeling and primary tuning. For example, the private companies when it becomes public, the financials will become available. So we can use that to signal to verify and then recalibrate our prior financial models. But most US private companies do not publicly disclose detailed financials since they are not required to do so. So financial modeling growth estimation, and performance forecasting cannot directly depend on government data. That's where the 80% comes from, the alternative performance indicators. For example, industry benchmarks, employee modeling, funding behavior, stage analysis, and AI extracted digital footprint signals. That's where the performance insight lives. So government data is the validation layer, not a dependence engine. In summary, government data matters, but intelligence requires more of us. Next, I'm going to talk about operational impact of government data. For example, so I'm going to talk about the operational impact of government data. For example, when data becomes delayed or less detailed. Let me separate two different concerns. One is financial estimation, which is the main product we're offering. The other is the verification. For financial estimation, it is actually not our primary risk. The reason is that government data becomes, the reason is our models already operate probabilistically. It already considers uncertainty bands and uses multiple proxy indicators. So when government data becomes restricted, it will not affect our financial model too much. The real impact is what we call the double uncertain verification problem. Because private company data is already fragmented and often self-reported. Unlike public companies, which they have standardized SEC EDGAR filings and CIK identifiers. However, private companies do not have a universal identification system. However, some people can ask, they have EINs. Yes, the EINs technically function as unique identifiers, but they are not publicly available in most cases. Government records serve as a high confidence anchors in entity resolution. So without that anchor layer, we are matching fragmented private signals to entities without a universal ID system. That's the double uncertainty. It increases verification complexity, but not analytical capability. So now removing federal anchors increases ambiguity in identity resolution. It doesn't compromise model integrity, but it requires more advanced matching logic. So the impact of delayed or less detailed government data for us is content and technical. So the question isn't whether private market intelligence survives reduced federal transparency. It actually does. The question is how we actually gonna architect the system to the verification system when the government data is absent. So next I'm going to talk about how we actually manage government data disruptions. So we actually noticed more and more frequent government data disruptions recently, but not all disruptions are equal. So we differentiate temporary interruptions and structural interruptions. So if disruption is temporary, for example, a delay, shutdown, or short-term data lag, we maintain provisional records. So since our models already operate within a defined uncertainty bands, so short-term data delays do not destabilize our financial estimation. When official data resumes, we just backfill and reconcile. If disruption becomes structural, meaning that restriction or permanent removal of certain government data, then we shift the weighting. For example, we can increase reliance on state filings or court records. We expand ingestion from trade publications. We strengthen proxy modeling, or we enhance probabilistic entity resolution. In other words, we redistribute signal weight across the system. The goal is not preservation of a specific data source. The goal is continuity of structured financial insight. So the real shift is happening here is basically from data dependency to model resilience under government data disruptions. Next, I'm going to hand it back to Walter to discuss how we use AI to collect private market signals, given that government data disruptions are happening more and more often than ever before.
Yep. Thank you, Joey. Yep. And this brings us back direct to the role of the AI, right? So instead of depending on a single grounding truth, like Joey mentioned about the government data is a grounding truth, but we triangulate across the different fragmented data sources and with the AI, right? AI helping us on several things. The first is about the extraction. So for some of the unstructured and the fragment sources, we can more effectively to extract those signal out of that. But that's more important is actually they were doing about the resolve is to map to the millions of the bucket for the companies or the entities. And after that, we're getting about those signal. We're going to each of those signal will be contributed and also creating about the insight for the company or the industry just about for its performance, including about the revenue range or the sentiment is agree or disagree. Or like Nicholas mentioned before, is actually about the conflict and also the confidence about those signal can be used or not. So instead of just about getting about it's like a copy paste to getting the information, is we are analysis each of the signal to extend to what exactly it is trying to contribute. And then it's like a puzzle to put it all together. If that can be put it back into the full picture from the company to the industry and the big back into the whole economy for that. And that's actually improved us about for the signal to noise ratio, especially for the information is a low disclosure environment, just like US, right? Unless you are in the US, unless you are in the public companies or have a specific requirement, you are not required to disclose any information. In PIFCO, while we're doing about the private company intelligence, actually we are already deal with this type of the situation. So in short, while the structured government data become constrained, delayed, or removed, the AI is helping us to compensate the information or the reference of the information by mining more distributed signals for that. And in terms for about the situation like the tariff, actually it's a very good example for that. To PIFCO, actually the tariff or all the policy shift is not just about the regulation changes, but actually they were generated into the measurable financial ripple effect. So for us, we pretty much we start to tracking that. We can check by the supply chain exposure for those about the tariff or just about for the regulation changes. And then that will be escalated into the industry level, the vulnerability. And based on that, because we get about the projected about the financial model and also about the performance matrix, so we can easily to find out about the revenue concentration risk, and then to escalate it up into the sector level impact for that. So rather than monitoring about the every policy headline, actually our focus is identifying about the financial impact signal at a more granular level. So just like this. And definitely in final, as Joey could mention about that, our strength or the advantage is actually our ability to produce structural financial intelligence under the uncertainty. Uncertain about the signal and also uncertain about the relationship between this signal to the industry and also the companies. But by triangulating about the diverse data sources, including about the government data and alternate signal, applying about advanced modeling and maintain a disciplined quality control, that is how the PIFCO do, and generating about the structured intelligence in the US private companies data. Again, thank you for your time, and I think I'll go hand it back to the host for the QA section. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Now I'm going to pass it over to Heidi, who will help to facilitate our Q&A. All of you should have a Q&A section on the side, and so any of the questions you have for any of the panelists can go right there, and I'll let Heidi kind of guide us.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. We've had 2 questions come in, and one of them's been partially answered. And for the sake of the recording, I'm going to read the question and the answer that has been provided so far, and then ask for a little bit more explanation. So the question was, does IBISWorld have plans to license its content to AI companies, for example, Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, etc.? And the answer was, yes, we are currently engaged with the leading AI companies to have our data surfaced where our clients work. as part of our growth strategy for 2026 and beyond. So I'm wondering if, and that was from Joe Mazer at IBISWorld. I wonder, Joe, could you expand a little bit on what's meant by having your data surfaced where your clients work?
Of course. So we are currently, we have a whole team dedicated to this. So I may have to even just get some of the clearance on what we're able to share, being that this is still a work in progress. But what I can say is that we're working with some of these organizations and some of the tools that they're offering to their clients, and we're pursuing integrations to the sense where it can be referencing IBISWorld information, if you have access to one of these AI tools and IBISWorld. There's I still need to learn a little more on the back end if it's like a separate marketplace that you gain access to. We can always discuss how to gain access. If you want to reach out to myself or Nicole in more detail, but essentially we would open up the ability for IBISWorld content to live in that platform. And then, of course, integrations like that aside, we do certainly have API feeds available too. So, case in point, I've had someone who was saying that they're working on building an internal knowledge hub. And let's say, for example, we want to take information from IBISWorld, from Statista, from Privco, from Simply Analytics, and this is me assuming that everyone has API. I'm not sure. I can only speak on behalf of IBISWorld, but let's say we want to have bits and pieces of information coming from all of these resources combined into one centralized knowledge hub. We can certainly work towards providing that capability through our API feeds based on what information is most important to you all.
Okay, thank you. There's a follow-up question. How will you, or I guess you could just say, will you guarantee that IBISWorld is credited when your data is surfaced by an AI company?
That's a great question. I do not know that I have the answer to that right now on the fly. I don't know if Nicole may have some insight into that, but I can certainly ask. I may even be able to get an answer before we wrap up the call, but I can certainly ask. Of course, we have our own AI functionality that our members can opt in or opt out of, built right into our IBISWorld database. So of course, and that can pull together sourcing and citations and everything. It's not meant to be a tool to do the work for students. It's essentially helps them scan the entire database of IBISWorld content, find exactly what they need, and point them towards the chapters that are relevant versus providing a report full of answers that they can just copy paste. So yes, in using our own AI functionality in our database, it's obviously going to sort and credit IBISWorld content based off of where that information is found. But I can certainly find out as the conversation evolves in regard to outside integrations, how we would guarantee that IBISWorld is credited. Of course, I'm sure there are a lot of conversations going on behind the scenes that I'm not even aware of yet to credibility and such.
Heidi, may I speak about what we're doing at Statista around AI partnerships?
Sure.
Excellent. So we have launched a product called Statista Connect that has a number of different flavors to it. One of the flavors is a really kind of plug and play partner integration. We have active partnerships with Perplexity, Copilot, Langdoc, Canva, and Anthropic. And so we can, if one of our customers has a enterprise subscription with Copilot, for example, we can work with you to get our API key into that so that your students can be doing research in Copilot, in Microsoft Word, and pull statistics directly into their paper as they're writing it. It comes in with the sourcing from Statista and the direct link from Statista, we also have for some customers who have larger footprints, we can look at custom integrations. So we can do custom integrations with our API key with OpenAI or various other platforms as well. So that's something that we are really leaning into this year. We're not going to be just a software as a service company, but we're trying to be a data as a service company because we have such a unique wealth of data. And like Nick said, with our mission of making sure that everybody is able to make decisions based on the best data possible, we're trying to help with the hallucinations that happen with AI tooling by helping get our data into that. So hopefully that kind of answers what we are doing with AI integrations.
Okay, thanks. And there was a question that came in for Privco asking about updates on integration with Copilot, and the response was that there is a technical integration between Privco and Microsoft Copilot, which will be implemented at the corporate or school level. So I imagine, and that was Walter who responded. And Walter, if you want to say a little bit more, is it similar to what Megan was describing?
Yes. So basically, it's the same thing as a Pivco as a data provider, the intelligent provider. Is we do have a different AI initiative and the technical integration with other AI partners. So we do have available that's for, let's say, the MCP type of integration. That would be more like for some of the people with more technical background and want to be putting that into their model. Or that would be part of the service, like the Copilot. The Copilot, actually, that would be like a data connector that would be creating about the knowledge graph for all the political intelligence that's including about the companies. And then you will be just need to go to the Copilot and ask, let's say, based on the private company information, and then you can identify is for, let's say, for the New York software companies and who just raising about the funding or who is the annual revenue of 10 million or more. Basically, is if you are integrated, your school or the corporate is integrated, those information will be available that's into your question already. So your Copilot AI will connecting that to find all the relevant information and construct about the information for you. So in this way, in the corporate or the school integration, then that would be the easiest to the user. But again, because that's not a single user integration, then probably we will discuss a little bit further as well how to integrate it into the corporate or the school level. That's available for most of the user in the school.
Okay, thank you. We've had a question come in about what is your trusted source to track changes in public data availability? So I think this could apply to all of our panelists. So I wonder if Juan, you'd like to take this one first.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I suspect someone from our data team might be more appropriate for that. But what I will say is we have sort of flags on picking up anytime there's new announcements from some of the census releases. So sometimes some of these data sets either get released in parts. So essentially, anytime that there's an announcement made, our data team is made aware of that, and either it will be relevant or maybe it won't, right? But yeah, that's generally from sitting in on some of their meetings. From what I've learned of what they do, they're basically just kind of informed, and also some of them sit in on like webinars from the census themselves. So, they'll be keen on just understanding any important dates because the census will routinely have that alongside their announcements. They'll kind of have a sign up to see if there's any interest in people wanting to find out about a new product or something. So yeah, but that's a great question.
Would any of the other panelists care to respond? Maybe use the hand up, raised hand icon. Okay, seeing no response, I'll move on. Sorry.
Um, uh, I was having trouble finding the hand raise.
Oh, gotcha.
So from IBIS World, not that you can tell from the view behind me, but we have a team of close to about 100 or so analysts and economists here, and they're constantly, they're segmented into specific groups that monitor our realm of roughly 1,300 U.S. industries, and each of them are constantly monitoring the segments that they write on, that they research, that they report, and there are various triggers. So if public data availability changes or government releases a rollout, we're constantly monitoring each industry and the data available. At that point, depending on how volatile an industry is or how much the information has changed, that's when we go in and update our reports and the sections of the reports based off of those changes. So you're always having the most up-to-date industry information and insights. Obviously, something like oil and gas field services may change more frequently than candle manufacturing, right? So that's why we're going to monitor public data availability and those changes, and then make sure you always have the current information at hand.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Sorry, can I also pipe in? I was also
Yes.
struggling to find the hand. Terribly sorry. So if anyone can help us with that. But anyway, yeah, just to build on what I was saying in the presentation earlier, we have an extremely human-centric approach to flagging any issues with our sources, and we centralize that intelligence within a database of sources we have. So that means that our researchers on the ground are actively monitoring their area of expertise. They have their own internal knowledge about what's happening in that area. They build up that expertise both from external training and on-the-job work, and any issues they find with those sources through the manual work they're doing with locating individual statistics and writing content on that will be fed into a centralized database that's then able to communicate that through to other teams. So basically, it really is a matter of having on-the-ground analysts with an area of expertise who are going in daily to identify trends in that area, are regularly manually updating information from our library of sources, and then feed that across to other teams where we have any sort of automation in place.
Okay. Walter or Joey, do you want to chime in?
Sure, I can share some insights. What do we do here? Since the Privco primarily focus on financials, right? So we periodically check the updates on the business CI case of the filings. See if there's like 10Q or 10K filings of companies and 8K or something. If there's any filings, we would know there's any updates. So compared to other industry trackings, corporate financial trackings is much more scheduled than probably other vendors doing.
Okay, thanks. Had a question come in about for Privco. I believe this one was completely answered, but we'll see. The question was, what happened to Dun & Bradstreet DUNS numbers as unique company identifiers? And the answer supplied is DUNS numbers are primarily issued identifiers by Dun & Bradstreet. They are useful and widely adopted in certain ecosystems, particularly procurement and vendor management. However, they are not a regulatory universal identifier like a CIK in public markets. Many companies don't have one. In addition, because DUNS data is commercially compiled rather than legally filed, coverage gaps and data variability can introduce noise. I was wondering if you'd like to speak a little bit more to that. Do you use some other unique identifier system in Privco? I'm not familiar with it myself.
Yeah, so we have in Privco we have several unique identifiers. For some companies we use the EIN numbers, but like I said before, not all companies have publicly available EIN numbers for us to track. For other companies, we use the websites as their unique identifiers. We also use the LinkedIn. However, the challenge is, the URL's website can change all the time. When a company, change the name or being acquired by other companies, the website may not be working anymore. the LinkedIn can be changing as well. So the real challenge is how we actively tracking those unique identifiers. So basically, compared to public companies, for private companies, there's no such a unique identifiers we can track on basically. And to answer the question about the Dun & Bradstreet, the reason is the Dun & Bradstreet is a private company, right? So the information provided by Dun & Bradstreet, we can't trust 100%, right? So if we use the noise data to map to our existing entity, it can create even more noise. So basically, in order to choose a right and correct unique identifiers, we need to have trustful sources to rely on instead of Dun & Bradstreet. I'm not saying it's not trustful, but we just don't know whether it's 100% correct.
Yeah, maybe let me jump in a little bit. Just even for public companies, tickets can be reused and changed. So you can see that it's unlike the person's information for the social security number that would be for you for the life. Private company, actually, we do have a hard time that's about for the unique identifier. And that's why we mentioned about that it's a double uncertainty. One is the signal uncertainty. The second is actually it's about identify uncertainty for that. So we need to extending about those information into matching about the signals, then we can group it together. And that is about the challenge that's all along with in the private company market.
Okay, thank you. There's a question that's come in about any additional cost to AI integrations with Copilot. And since it was IBISWorld and Statista, I've specifically heard that mentioned. I wonder, Megan or Nick, you'd like to talk about Statista?
Sure, I can take that. So there is an additional cost to that. It's basically sold in packages of credits for usage of the API keys. Now, that said, we also offer kind of a pilot program, essentially, where you can get a small set of, and I referred to this in an answer in here. You can get a small set of credits. So the vision here would be that you could put the Copilot integration into a specific class or work with a specific faculty member to see how it would meet your student and faculty needs before we start talking about the larger price model of, enterprise-wide access.
Okay, and Joe or Nicole?
Sure. Yeah, so it's very similar to Statista. I believe that there would be an additional licensing in regard to gaining access through other integrations. For sure, we're still rapidly developing in respect to the roadmap for integrations and APIs and such. So I'd be happy to chat more on a one-on-one basis for anyone interested, or Nicole, of course, depending on if you work with myself or her. And we can iron out a solution that would work. I'm not fully informed yet as to if there's a broad answer to how the integrations are priced, but can certainly go chat more offline. Nicole, did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that?
So we do have Copilot partnerships, which again, we can speak more offline about that, just because before you do anything, just like adding any modules like before, we always want you to try it out. Be comfortable, be confident in what you are going to be getting. So definitely talk to Joe or I. We do Copilot integrations. However, the budget is always the biggest thing. So in the meantime, if you guys aren't comfortable adding Copilot at the moment, we do have the free Phil AI that is available for everyone now. So you guys do have access to that.
Okay. And we have a request, I think, for clarification on the way that IBISWorld data, but might apply to other of the panelists as well. The way that the data becomes available through AI companies. It sounds like that's a paid add-on in general. And the question was about whether if the data becomes available through AI companies, what is the incentive for your customers to remain subscribers?
Sure. So actually, someone came to me with a similar question not long ago, and they mentioned that a student was using an open sourced AI, and I'm sure this applies to everyone here on this call, the other providers as well, the other publishers. They were using an open source AI to conduct their research, not even realizing that the library has access to fantastic resources like everyone here on the call. And the student actually, in this case, found IBIS World data, didn't even realize the information, I think was from 2017, 2018. They referenced it in their work, not knowing, not catching the fact that it was dated. And I mean, we lived through a global pandemic since then. A lot has changed in the world. So they didn't realize that the information was outdated. Maybe someone posted on a public forum an IBIS World report from that period. So by having access to IBIS World through the membership and through any licensing for additional integrations, you're always making sure you're getting the most up-to-date content and information, that it's credible, human verified, sourced to IBIS World. It's not pulling bits and pieces from who knows where. Trade associations can sometimes be biased towards their own industry. I don't know, but and also formatted in a structure that people are familiar with. So, and I'm sure this is something that my peers here, the other panelists, are faced with on a regular basis. So, but that's essentially one thing that we've been seeing on our side.
Thanks. Nick, you wanted to talk? Yeah.
Sorry, I can jump in next. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, actually, because on the one hand, there is amazing possibilities and potentials when bringing in a curated data set into a large language model tool, putting the right prompts and workflows in place, you can get some absolutely incredible results. But you're entirely right to raise the question of, how is that going to potentially cannibalize or reduce the need for remaining subscription services? And I think that the reality is that AI content always needs to be verified. We're not at a point yet, and we may never be at a point where AI content can be just left unverified, not checked. The expertise people have has an additional currency these days, because that's what enables people to be able to verify AI content against a proper human baseline of knowledge. And so I think there has to be a hybrid workflow for the time being. You need the ability to be able to quickly generate responses with AI is extremely powerful, but you still need something to click through to be able to verify that content, And that's something where I think platform subscriptions still play a really, really important role, because you can go into, I know with our Copilot integration, we link directly through to the statistics in our platform from the output within Copilot. So it actually speeds up that verification workflow. So that's where I see the value of subscriptions are, until AI hypothetically progresses beyond a particular point where you can just trust those responses without verification. It's about the verification workflow.
I'm going to check in with Ryan on time. How are we doing?
I would say maybe one more question, and then we should probably.
Right. Okay. So for this question, I would like people to use the raise hand function, I think. So maybe you figured out how to get there by now, but just in case, if you mouse over the panelist, don't click on anything. You should see a toolbar appear at the bottom of the screen, and there's a raise hand option there. Okay, so I'm going to look for raised hands. So the question is, do any of the providers see themselves as stepping in to collect data themselves in the event of substantial long-term changes in government data collection? Yeah. Okay. I guess, is that pretty much a no? Does anyone want to speak up about that?
I could go. I know that would be something for our data team. I could get that question and get the answer for you guys. It's definitely something like I sit right next to the analyst. I can ask them right after this call. So if anyone does have the want to know the answer to that one, for my schools, definitely just follow up with me. I see a lot of you guys on here or Joe's schools as well, but we can get that answer for you. But I just don't want to speak on it just because it's not our realm exactly. So just wanted to at least answer.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and that is a really good question too. And the only thing that I could really add is like when it comes to, some of the core products like we're using, like the census, for example. I mean, the census is really amazing, especially, like the decennial census every 10 years. Well, think of the sort of costs and the manpower associated with doing something like that, right? Like it's an amazing service. But yeah, I'm actually curious, to hear if there's any other ideas, because it's a good question, right? Like how could something like that be easily replicated? Because I understand, running the census is likely, very expensive as an example. Maybe other data sets would be more feasible. But from Simply Analytics, it would, it would be very difficult.
Okay, Nick, thank you.
I got the hand this time. Yay. Sorry about that. Look, I mean, there is one thing that we are looking into at the moment. I was a bit hesitant about talking about it because it's something we're doing only in Germany at this point of time. It's not yet released, and I'm not sure to the extent to which we can actually talk about it. I know we're looking to roll it out to the US, hopefully at some point next year, but we're actually looking into synthetic population data, which we're calibrating using our proprietary consumer survey data. So, to my extent of the knowledge about the methodology of it, I'm not a data science guy, I'm a researcher. But to my understanding is what we're doing is basically layering existing data sets from the census or what other sources we can find to create basically a digital twin of the entire population of Germany at this point. So 83 million digital individuals down to a 100 square meter grid level. And then that data is obviously a little bit old coming from a survey, but we're calibrating that using our proprietary consumer survey data that's going to be more up to date. So, no older than about 3 to 4 months at any period. Now, whether that can fully replace replace census data or government data, given it is based on census data, that's an open question, but I can certainly imagine a world where we took that approach of trying to calibrate what information we do have from censuses with survey data if there's no other viable alternative. Now, there might be viable, NGO data or the like that we could use to get that level of granularity and then, again, combined with our survey data. That's a hypothetical question, but that is one thing I could imagine we could do if those sources did dry up. So I'm being very speculative and talking about a product that we're only releasing next month in one market, but I can see that as a pathway.
I think I'm going to step in here just to call it for today. But thank you all so much. If you can give a round of applause. Doesn't look like there's too many options. Oh, we got a hand there, here, there, for our panelists today. One last thing before you head out is that I can't find an option here to share this, but you'll probably get an email from me in Bislib like right after. But we do have a feedback form. This will help us to think about topics for next year, to think about how the session went today, what we can improve upon, what went well. So if you could fill that out, that would be fantastic. I'll send that again through Bislib, and if you got the recording as well, that will also probably come in the recording. But thank you all so much today for your participation, and I wish you all well. So